Financial analysis techniques, EOC questions. First question. Comparison of companies' financial results to other peer companies for same time period is called what? Technical analysis. No, what is technical analysis? Technical analysis uses the volume of stock traded in the prices for making some investment decisions. So this is not the right option. Time series analysis is where you take time on the horizontal axis and plot some variable on time. This is called time series analysis. Of course, this is not what you're looking for. Cross-sectional analysis. Yes. Cross-sectional analysis involves the comparison of companies in the same industry over a period of time. That's the right option. Most of you got it correct. All of you got it correct. Next. In order to assess company's ability to fulfill its long-term, mind the word, long-term obligations, an analyst would most likely examine what? Activity ratios. They just calculate the usage of assets. We want to see our ability to pay long-term obligations when they fall due. Liquidity ratios, they measure the ability of a business to pay short-term obligations when they become due. We measure solvency or long-term obligation through solvency ratios. That's why C is the right answer. Next. Which ratio would a company most likely use to measure its ability to meet short-term obligation? Absolutely. Current ratio. Current ratio is in the category of ratios we call liquidity ratios. Payable turnover, it's an activity ratio. Gross profit margin, it's a profitability ratio. Remember, you should develop this habit of reading all the options, and you need to convince yourself why a wrong answer is wrong and why the correct is correct. This is the key, because most of you haven't been through American certifications. We are in this field for the last 20 years, CIA, CMA. So in this kind of examination, you have to be very clear on which option you are selecting. And when you reject an option, you should have a solid reason of rejecting it. And if you're selecting some option, you have a good reason for selecting it. Right? So this is always recommended. Your questions are quite straightforward and short, but if you just open any Gleim software, CMA and CIA, you will see a whole scenario, and all this is given in theoretical. An option looks so close that most of you will just simply click the wrong option. So I recommend read all options and make sure you are totally okay with the right option and you know for sure why a wrong is wrong. It's quite a straightforward question, but still I would recommend you to develop this attitude towards question. A is the right answer. Moving on. Which of the following ratios would most useful in determining company's ability to cover its lease and interest payments? Coverage ratio. Return on assets is a profitability measure. Total assets turnover, it's an activity measure. Fixed charge coverage, yes. We discussed this a little while ago. Fixed charge coverage. This will determine the company's ability to make payment on lease terms and interest payments. Correct. C is the right option. Now, an analyst is interested in assessing both the efficiency and liquidity of Sherion's or Sferion's PLC. Efficiency and liquidity. The analyst has collected the following data for Sferion. Days of inventory on hand. First, we kept inventory sufficient enough to cover 40 days sale. 34, 32. In other words, now our inventory days have fallen. Inventory turnover has increased. Remember, when the inventory days fall, inventory turnover increases. And in both cases, it's good. Now you keep your inventory for shorter period of time, resulting in lower holding cost, lower obsolescence, low deterioration, less pilferage, less inventory taxes. Good for the company. So having lower number of days for inventory means your inventory sells more frequently now. It's good. Good for liquidity. Days sales outstanding. First you collected your receivables within 23 days. Now they pay you after 25 days, and in financial year 3, they pay you after 28 days. It means your receivables now are paying you lesser times in 1 year. They are delaying the payment. This is not good for liquidity. Third, Number of delays of payable. First, you paid your payables within 35 days in the year 1. Same in year 2. But now you have started delaying without damaging the relationship with your vendor. So when you delay the payments, withholding the payment of your suppliers eventually leaves more cash with you, hence your liquidity problems are resolved. This is how firms manage their cash. Those from accounting department, they would know. Delaying your payables, delaying payment of salaries would result in having cash to meet urgent expenses. So this case, even your suppliers might be angry, but for your business, from liquidity point of view, it's good. Now, what the question is, based on this data, what is the analyst least likely conclusion from this? First, least likely. Inventory management has contributed to improve liquidity. Yes, inventory management has improved liquidity. Now we are frequently selling our goods. Inventory turnover has increased. Or in other words, we hold on to our inventory for lesser days. Good for us. It's a correct one. Management of payable has contributed to improved liquidity. Yes, you are delaying payments to your payables. Now, this has resulted in more liquidity, improved liquidity. Correct. Management of receivables has contributed to improved liquidity. Now, this is not correct. Your receivables are now paying you less frequently. They are delaying the payment. So this payment delay will not help your liquidity. This is wrong. This has not improved my liquidity. In fact, it has deteriorated my liquidity. This is the least accurate. And that's why it's the right answer. Next. An analyst is evaluating the solvency and liquidity of Apex Manufacturing and has collected the following data in millions of euros. Okay. Solvency and liquidity. We have been given total debt and total equity. Which of the following would be analyst's most likely conclusion? Just debt and equity. What is the first conclusion? The company is becoming increasingly less solvent as evidenced by increase in its debt to equity. Let us calculate the debt to equity ratio for all these 3 years. Debt upon equity, they have been given in the same order. 1750 divided by 5000 gives you 0.35. What does it mean? For every $1 invested by equity holder, the debt is $0.35. Next year, 1900 divided by 4500. If you simplify this, you get 0.4222, indicating for every $1 investment, your debt is now $0.42. In the last year, straightforward, it's 0.5, indicating that your debt as a fraction of equity is increasing. Firm is becoming less solvent. True. The company is becoming increasingly less solvent as evidenced by increase in its debt to equity ratio from 0.35 to 0.50 from the year FY3 to FY5. We need to look no further. We cannot calculate liquidity because these are the two measures, debt and equity. Liquidity cannot be calculated. In these, B and C are wrong, so A is the right answer. Next. With regard to data in problem 6 previously, what would be the most reasonable explanation of the financial data? Most reasonable explanation from this one. First, the decline in the company's equity results from decline in the market value of this company's common shares. Absolutely wrong. Market value of the share has nothing to do with equity. If equity is falling from 5,000 to 4,500 to 4,000, either there are losses or company might have purchased its own stock from the market, treasury stock, or company might have paid more dividends than the profit earned, or it could be a combination thereof. So this is not the right thing. Common shares are not reported at the market price. This is wrong, a totally incorrect option. Equity is reported at book value, not the market value. Wrong. The $250 increase in the company's debt from financial year 3 to 5 indicates that the lenders are viewing the company as increasingly credit worthy. Yes, debt has increased over the period by 250 million euros. So does it mean that the fund providers are viewing us favorably? Fund providers provide fund as long as you need it and you are willing to pay the interest and you're capable enough to pay the interest. So we cannot assume that we have been given loan of $250 million, so it means that we are more creditworthy. In fact, our creditworthiness is in trouble. Our solvency is falling every year. We can't assume that. We can't say that. This is not a right option. Creditworthiness is not determined just by your ability to pay interest only. There are many other factors as well. Last one. The decline in the company's equity indicates that the company may have incurred losses. Losses are debit, equity is credit. So when the debit is netted off against credit, your credit falls. Paying dividends greater than the income. You earned $10,000 income, but you paid $15,000 dividend. So this was the addition to the equity. This was deduction. So there is a net decrease in equity. Or you might have repurchased the shares, treasury stock. So these are the valid reason why equity could have fallen. It could be any of these or a combination of these arrangements. C is the right answer. Next, an analyst observes a decrease in company's inventory turnover. Inventory turnover falls. It means it is sold less frequently now. Which of the following would most likely explain this trend? A. The company installed a new, this is an interesting question, gentlemen, I need your attention. The company installed a new inventory management system, allowing more efficient inventory management. We know inventory turnover is equal to cost of goods sold upon average inventory. I'm just writing inventory. This efficient inventory management system will result in lower inventory. So the inventory falls, a denominator falls, your inventory turnover should increase. But here we see there is a decrease in inventory turnover. So this is not the reason. This would result in increase in inventory turnover. But the question requires that there has been a decrease in inventory turnover. Wrong. Remember, decrease and most likely reason. Due to problem with obsolete inventory last year, the company wrote off large amount of inventory at the beginning of the period. When the inventory was written off, your average inventory will fall. We know inventory turnover is cost of goods sold upon average inventory. Since the inventory was written off during the period, your average inventory balance fell. When the average inventory balance will go down, the denominator goes down, the ratio would improve, but we are looking for a decrease in ITO. This is incorrect as well. This is what I mean when I say read each option well, and you need to know why a correct is correct, why a wrong is wrong. See, the company installed a new inventory management system, but experienced some operational difficulties, resulting in duplicate orders being placed with suppliers. When the duplicate orders being placed with suppliers, we will have a swelled up inventory. This swelled up inventory would take in more space, will take more carrying cost, obsolescence, etc. So what will happen to inventory turnover? Inventory turnover is CGS upon your average inventory. Since inventory has swelled up because of duplicate orders, the denominator goes up. Increase in denominator will cause the ratio to fall, so ITO will fall. This is a valid, plausible reason why your ITO has fallen. C is the right answer. Next, which of the following would best explain an increase in receivables turnover? We know account receivable turnover is equal to your net credit sales, or this is what I'm used to saying. You don't get credit sales all the time, just sales, annual sales, net sales, divided by your average receivables. Right. The company adopted new credit policy last year and began offering credit to customers with weak credit histories. Just like what happened in 2008, subprime mortgage crisis. Search this up in Google and you will know what happened there back then, 2008 subprime mortgage crisis. Those who do not deserve credit, they were given credit. So when you sell to such customers, your customers are unlikely to pay you quickly. Resultantly, average receivable balance will swell. When this goes up, your average receivable turnover will fall. What we are looking for? Increase in receivables. So this is not the reason to, rather it will result in ER to fall. We want more frequent payments, but selling goods to the customers with weak credit histories, they will default, they will delay the payments. So this is not right. This will result in lowering of your average turnover of receivables. B. Due to problems with an error in its old credit scoring system, the company had accumulated a substantial amount of uncollectible accounts and wrote off a large amounts of receivables. Now look at this. Since you have written off your account receivables by debiting bad debt loss to the income statement and crediting the receivables, receivables will fall. When the denominator falls in a ratio, the overall ratio will improve, I will say increase. It will go up. So this is one of the reasons that if the denominator falls, your ATO will increase. It appears to be the correct option. Let us read C. Don't just jump to the next question unless you convince yourself that C is wrong as well. B appears to be correct. Let us see. C. To match the terms offered by its closest competitor, the company adopted new payment terms, now requiring net payments within 30 days rather than our regular 15 days, which had been its previous requirement. Previously, our customer paid us within 15 days as per our previous credit terms. Now, keeping in mind what is happening in the industry, our closest competitor, we have extended our credit period to 30 days. This would result, gentlemen, account receivable turnover. Since you have now given 30 days credit, your account receivable balance will swell. Will increase, in other words. I use this word frequently. Because of higher denominator, the ratio will fall. So we are looking for increase in receivable turnover. C will result in decrease. So this is not right option as well. So we are sure now B is the right answer, and B it is. Next. Brown Corporation had average days of sales outstanding 19. In the most recent fiscal year, Brown wants to improve its credit policies and collection practices and decrease its collection period in the next fiscal year to match the industry average of 15 days. This has been his historical average of collection. This is the time his average customer pays in 19 days. He wants to bring it down to 15 days. Credit sales in the most recent fiscal year were 300 million. Brown expects credit sales to increase to 390 million. Sales are going to go up. Even he's planning to reduce his collection period. Despite that, sale is going to go up. Maybe some other reason, maybe the market is expanding, or he has some effective advertisement campaign in place, or whatever. So number of days are going to fall, but your credit sale is going to go up from 300 to 390. What exactly are we required to calculate? To achieve Brown's goal of decreasing the collection period from 19 to 15, the change in average account receivable balance that must occur is closest to what? For this question, I will use my favorite formula. This is what I use frequently for calculating average collection period. Let me write it up somewhere here. Average collection period is equal to your average account receivable divided by sales multiplied by 365. Now, making account receivable as the subject of this equation, account receivable is going to be average collection period multiplied by sales divided by 365. Using this formula, you can straight away calculate the average receivable balance. Now, let us apply the previous case. What is right now the case existing situation? We have 19 days of collection period. Our current sale is 300 million. I'm just writing 300, or let's write full 300 million. Divided by 365. This will give us our average account receivables. 19 multiplied by 300 million upon 365. You will get your average account receivable balance, and it has to be 15.62 million. Now, under the new revised arrangements, use the same formula. What would be the new account receivable balance? If we want to bring our collection period to 15 days, our expected credit sales are going to be 390 million divided by 365. If you solve this all, you will get 16.03 million. The difference between these two is 0.407 million, which is about 0.41 million, and it is increasing. Revision in our credit policy will see increase in account receivables, 15.6 to 16.03. The difference is 4.01. That makes a positive difference, and it's A. A is your right answer. Next, an analyst observes the following data for two companies, company A and B. We have been given revenue, net sales, current assets, total assets, liabilities, debt, and equity. Right? Which of the following choices best describes reasonable conclusions that the analyst might make about these two companies' ability to pay their current and long-term obligation? Current and long-term obligation. Ability to pay current obligation is measured through current ratio, quick ratio, or cash ratio. And ability to pay long-term debt is calculated through debt ratio, debt to capital, debt to total assets, debt to equity. Let us see. First option. Company A's current ratio is 4.0. Let us calculate both for company A and B. First, we'll calculate the current ratio. For company A, it has got 40,000 worth of current assets, and current liabilities are 10,000. So yes, the first number is matching, 4.0. For B, it is 60,000 upon 50. It's 1.2. So company A's current ratio 4.0 indicate that it's more liquid than company B, whose current ratio is 1.2. These two numbers match. We just don't need to click A unless we are convinced. But company B is more solvent, as indicated by lower debt to equity ratio. Let us calculate the debt to equity ratio as well. For company A, this is the total debt, 60. What is the equity? 30. 60 by 30 gives you 2 or 200. You can write it in percentages as well. 2 to 1 or 200%. For company B, it is 150 divided by 500. This is way lower, just 0.3, or you can write it as 30%. Right? So yes, A option is correct. Company A has more liquidity, and company has a better solvency position than B. So let's read the option again and make sure we got the right option. Company A's current ratio is 4, indicates it's more liquid than company B, whose current ratio is 1.2. But company B is more solvent, as indicated by its lower debt to equity ratio. Now company A has a significant debt compared to its equity, but company B has lower. So yes, these numbers perfectly match. That makes A to be the correct option. Now this information relates to your next 4 to 5 questions. Many aspects of this question will frequently see back and forth. Question number 12 to 16 will be covered based upon this exhibit. Right. The company's total assets. Let us first have a look. What are we given? We have been given 5 years data. The data in the exhibit 1 appeared in the 5-year summary of a major international company. A business combination with another major manufacturer took place in financial year 3. So what does it mean? Till here you have, this is where the combination took place. And you can see there's a difference here. Revenue was 4.3, 3.6, and then it swelled to 8.1 and 11.36. Likewise, the assets were 3.5, 3.6, 4.7, and after the combination in 2013 or FY13, the assets, fixed assets, went up to 10 million, 11 million. So this makes sense. The numbers are authentic that there is a business combination 13 onwards. And we have been given the revenue, EBIT, taxation, minority interest. It's a consolidated business. Profit for the year, we have been given balance sheet, fixed assets, and all the information given. We'll see what exactly do we need. And they've been given also cash flows and working capital movements. All right, what exactly do we need? Let us read the information first. Requirements. The company's total assets at year end FY9 were 3,500. FY9, where do we have it? In fact, this is the opening balance of FY10. This is the opening balance of FY10. 3.5 million worth of asset were there at the start of the periods. They were at the end of FY9 and at the start of FY10. Which of the following choices best describes a reasonable conclusion an analyst might make about the company's efficiencies? First A, comparing FY14 with FY10. He is comparing these, that is before combination and after combination, comparison between FY10 and FY14. What exactly he is looking for? Comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's efficiency improved as indicated by the total assets turnover ratio of 0.86 compared to 0.64. We have to calculate the assets turnover, total assets, mind the word, total assets turnover. Let us calculate this right here. We have the numbers given here. Total assets turnover. All right, here we go. 2000 FY10 and FY14. Assets turnover means revenue divided by the average total assets. Mind the word average. Now we have the revenue given here. FY10, the revenue here is 4390. 4390. Average assets. Remember, there was a reason. Now let me show you. Why did he give you the total assets value at the end of FY9, 3.5 million? This was to calculate your average total assets for FY10. So we have the opening assets available, 3.5 billion. In fact, this is 3,500 million. This is the opening total assets, and these are your closing total assets for FY10. Adding these two and dividing by 2 will give you the average assets. I'm going to write them in full. It's going to be 3,500 plus 4384 and divided by 2. This will give you the assets turnover for FY10. Its result will be 1.11. All right. What about FY14? For FY14, the revenue has gone up to 11.366 billion or 11,366. I'm just going to take this number, 11,366. This is the revenue. Now I need the average total assets. Remember, FY14, this is the closing number of assets, total assets. I need to take the average, so I need to take the opening as well. So the opening average total assets means opening and closing divided by 2. So I'm going to write it here, 13799. This is the closing balance of total assets, and 12250 divided by 2. This will give me the average. I told you, whenever an income statement item is linked with the balance sheet item must be averaged if possible. Since we can calculate, we were given this 3,500 million and we have this closing balance, so we should calculate the average because it's the right formula. Income statement item, whenever linked with the balance sheet numbers must be averaged. So once you solve this, you will get 0.87. So you can see, previously, before merger, for every $1 of asset investment, the business was able to generate a revenue of 1.11. But now, in a larger business, $1 investment in asset has generated $0.87 of sales. Not good, not good, not good. Let's see what the option says. Option says, comparing these, it shows efficiency has improved. No, efficiency has not improved. Rather, it has deteriorated. It's a wrong option. Let us see option B. Comparing FY14 with FY10, the company efficiency deteriorated as indicated by current ratio. We don't even need to look at this option. Why? Because efficiency is not determined by current ratio. Current ratio is used for measuring liquidity. Totally incorrect. Then it has to be C then. You can just click C and go on if you are doing the actual exam. But since we have to convince ourselves that we have selected the right option, C says comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's efficiency deteriorated due to asset growth faster than the turnover growth. Since there has been a business combination, subsidiary and a parent, so resulting in more assets now. So assets have grown proportionately higher than the increase in sales. Is it so? Let us convince ourselves with the actual computations from here. All right. Let us first calculate what has been the growth in assets. Assets have grown from 4384. Average assets in the beginning were 3500 million plus 4384. Take this average. And once the business were combined, the closing average of assets would be 12250 and 13799. Take the average of opening assets, average of the FY14 and FY13, and you will see that the average for this will come out to be 3942. This is the average at the start before the combination. And 12250 and 13799, their average will be 13024.5. Yes, assets have grown up. By what percentage? Take the difference and divide with the original. I'm sure you know how to calculate the change. It's 230.4%. Assets have grown by 230.4%. Now, what about the sales revenue? We don't need to take the average for sales revenue. This is your sales, 4390 before the merger or acquisition, whatever the arrangement of combination is. 4390, and now it is 11366. Take the difference and divide it with the original 4390. There has been an increase of 158.91%. Now you can see assets have grown by 230%, whereas your sale has grown up by 158%. So clearly it indicates that assets have grown. So when you calculate your assets turnover, we know the assets turnover is equal to sales revenue upon the average total assets. Since sale has grown by 158%, but the average total assets have grown up by 230%, resultantly ATU has fallen. Now, this is a very plausible reason that we can conclude that comparing with these 2 years, the company's efficiency deteriorated due to assets growth was faster than the turnover is. A wonderful question, and you have worked on actual numbers. C is the right answer. Now in the same exhibit, we have something else to determine now. Which of the following choices best describes reasonable conclusions an analyst might make about the company's solvency? First, comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's solvency improved as indicated by increase in debt to assets ratio. Let us calculate this ratio, and in the next one it says, comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's solvency deteriorated as indicated by decrease in interest coverage. We will calculate these two side by side and then we'll make the comparison. Lastly, it says, comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's solvency improved as indicated by profit of 645 million. Look at this. This is 645 profit, yes, for the group consolidated income statement, but this is not the measure of, as required by the question, this one. The company's solvency improved as indicated by growth in its profits. Solvency is not determined by profitability. It's a wrong option and we will not spend our time on this one. We will just evaluate A and B. We will have to calculate the debt to assets ratio and we will have to calculate the interest coverage ratio, and then we will make our conclusion. So here we go. We have the numbers. Let's take the assets 4384 right here. What about FY14? FY14, the debt has now risen to level 3707 million. The total assets have gone up as well, 13799. This simplification will give you 14,0.14. and it'll give you 0.77, 0.27. Then interest coverage. Interest coverage is earning before interest and tax. That is right here, 844 divided by the interest charge. So it's going to be 844 upon 80. It gives you 10.6. And then in FY14 it is 1579 divided by 188. 1579 divided by 188. It gives you 8.4. Before combination, we could pay interest 10.6 times, but now our ability to pay interest has decreased. So now let us compare these results here. Now let's see first option A. Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's solvency improved as indicated by an increase in its debt to asset ratio from 0.14 to 0.27. This is not an improvement. Debt is proportionally a larger part of your assets now. This word is wrong. It has not improved, rather it has deteriorated. It has deteriorated. First debt was 14 cents out of $1. Now the debt is $0.27 per dollar, or 27 cents per dollar. So it has deteriorated, not improved. A is incorrect. B. Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's solvency deteriorated as indicated by decrease in interest and coverage. Yes, interest coverage has fallen. Now you are convinced. This is how you should do the questions. Do not be afraid of longer, bigger questions. This is the temperament that you have to build. Face on whatever is coming your way. You must charge against the question. This is the key to pass professional certification. The reason students fail is they are afraid of questions. Getting rid of this fear, getting rid of this fear of questions will help you pass the exam. That's the key. The sooner you realize this, the better. So that makes B to be the correct option. Next, question number 14. Which of the following choices best describes a reasonable conclusion an analyst might make about the company's liquidity? Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's liquidity improved as indicated by debt to asset ratio. Debt to asset ratio is not a measure of liquidity. Wrong. Straightforward, incorrect option. Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's liquidity deteriorated as indicated by decrease in interest coverage. Interest coverage is not the measure of liquidity. Now, if you want to just guess, go for it. C is the right answer. But let us convince ourselves what do we have to do for C. Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's liquidity improved as indicated by the current ratio going from 0.75 to 0.71 to 0.75. Let's do it. We have it here. Let's erase this first. Take a pointer, erase this again. All right. We need to calculate current ratio for FY14, FY10 and FY14. Okay. We know current ratio is equal to current assets upon current liabilities. Look at the current assets we have here. These are the current assets, 558. Other current assets, investments, cash and bank, 316. So 316 plus 558 divided by current liabilities. These are given here. Other interest bearing, these are the long-term liabilities. These are your current liabilities. 1, 2, 2, 3. Its simplification should give you 0.71. What about next year, FY14? 682 million and 1634. 682 million plus 1634 divided by the current liabilities, then 3108. Now it will be 0.75. Now these numbers perfectly match. Yes. Company's liquidity improved as indicated by increase in its current ratio from 0.71 to 0.75. Perfect option. C is the right answer. Next. Which of the following choices best describes reasonable conclusion an analyst might make about the company's profitability? Profitability is the objective. Comparing FY14 and FY10, the company's profitability improved as indicated by increase in debt to assets ratio. Wrong. Debt to asset ratio is not the measure of profitability. It's a measure of solvency. Wrong. Okay, next, comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's profitability deteriorated as indicated by net profit margin of 11 to 5.7. This is what we must calculate. Here we go. We need to calculate the net profit percentage. Straightforward. 484 upon 439 for FY10, and it's going to be 11%. And for FY14 it's 645 divided by 11,366. It's going to be 5.7. These two numbers exactly match with your option B. Yes, profit margin has fallen from 11 to 5.7. That makes B to be the correct option. Why not C? Comparing FY14 with FY10, the company's profitability improved as indicated by growth in its shareholders' equity. Shareholder equity is not a measure of profitability. Equity could go up because of share issues. The company issues shares. Issuing share could increase your equity. It doesn't mean it's a profit. So growth in shareholders' equity is not a measure of profitability. So C was wrong. So it means B is the right answer. Last question from this situation, from this exhibit, question number 16. Assuming no changes in other variables, which of the following would decrease return on assets? A decrease in the effective tax rate. When the tax rates fall, net income increases. When net income increases, it should result in higher return on assets. We are looking for decrease. Mind the word. Do not forget that. You have a good option in your CBT from February. You can highlight the requirement and you will always be mindful of what you're looking for. Decrease ROA. So this is increasing. It's an incorrect option. Decrease in interest expense. When the interest expense falls, your net income will go up. When the net income goes up, your return on assets should go up. We are looking for a decrease in ROA, so this is wrong as well. Increase in average assets. Now look at for return on assets is equal to net income upon average total assets. Increase in average total asset is a denominator. When the denominator becomes larger, it will cause the whole ratio to fall. Now we are absolutely convinced that C is the right answer, and C it is. An analyst compiles the following data for a company. We have been given ROE and it is increasing over the period. Return on total assets, it's falling, and the total assets turnover stays somewhat the same. Now what are we required to do? Based only on this information above, the most appropriate conclusion that is we can draw over the period from FY13 to FY15 is, number 1, net profit margin and financial leverage have increased. Net profit margin and financial leverage, profit margin, financial leverage, profit margin, financial leverage. I mean, all these options involve the calculation of profit margin and financial leverage. Gentlemen, I'm sure you would have remembered the formula. Return on equity can be written this way. Return on equity is equal to return on assets into financial leverage. Rearranging this formula will give you financial leverage is equal to return on equity upon return on assets. Using this formula, we have been given ROE, we have been given ROA. Dividing these two will give me financial leverage. For financial leverage, for FY13, 19.8 upon 8.1 gives me 2.44. Financial leverage for FY14, 20 divided by 8, that is 2.5. For FY15, 22 divided by 7.9, it's 2.78. So yes, financial leverage is increasing. Convinced. What about net profit now? We have been given return on total assets, and return on total assets is equal to net profit margin multiplied by the assets turnover. We have been given the assets turnover. We have been given return on total assets. Rearranging this formula will give you net profit percentage. Net profit percentage is equal to return on assets divided by the assets turnover, ATO, which means I'm going to divide my return on assets. This number, let's take a different colored pen now. Now it's going to be 8.1 divided by 2 is going to be 4.05%. Net profit is equal to return on assets upon assets turnover, 8 upon 2, that will give me 4. And 7.9 upon 2.1, it gives me 3.76%. So over the period, your net profit percentage has fallen. NP has fallen. Now we are convinced. Net profit margin and financial leverage both decreased, wrong. Financial leverage has increased. Net profit margin and financial leverage both increased, wrong. Net profit margin decreased, correct, but financial leverage increased, correct. C is the correct option. And C has to be the right answer. Next. A decomposition of return on equity. If you remember the 5-way decomposition, tax burden, interest burden, EBIT, assets turnover, leverage, all are given. A decomposition of ROE for Integra SA is as follows. What do we see? ROE is the same for the both years. Interest burden is the same. EBIT is the same. Leverage is the same. What's the difference? The difference has been the tax burden and the assets turnover. These are the two differences. Now, which of the following best describes reasonable conclusions an analyst might make based on the ROE's decomposition? First, profitability and the liquidity positions both improved. No information has been given for liquidity. And profitability, since given in the comparative terms, it's the same. EBIT is the same, ROE is the same. So this is not the right option. B. The higher average tax rates in FY12 offset the improvement in profitability, leaving ROE unchanged. Tax burden, if you remember, I told you tax burden is equal to 1 minus tax rate. Tax burden is equal to 1 minus tax rate. If it has been calculated as 0.70, then what would have been tax? 30%. If tax burden has been calculated 0.75, the tax would have been 25%. Yes, tax rate has increased from 25 to 30. The average tax rate has gone up, higher average tax rate. This has offset the improved in profitability, leaving ROE unchanged. Now look at this. Your assets turnover has improved over the period, but there has been no change in profitability. No change in profitability. This is the wrong option. Profitability, EBIT is the same, ROE is the same. So there has been an increase in efficiency, 1.4 to 1.5. Previously we generated $1.4 revenue from every $1 of investment in assets. Now we have generated $1.5 of revenue from $1 of asset. So there has been more efficient use of the assets now. The higher average tax rate, which is bad for you, has been offset by the improvement in efficiency. There has been more efficiency, but unfortunately it was taken away by increased tax burden, thereby your overall ROE is the same. So these are the two numbers which needed justification, and we have found the justification, that is C, and that's the correct option. A decomposition of ROE for company A and company B is given. ROE is tax burden, interest burden, EBIT, assets turnover and leverage, given for both years for company A and B. An analyst is most likely to conclude what? Company A's ROE is higher than company B's in FY15, and one explanation consistent with the data is that company A may have purchased new, more efficient equipment. If company has purchased new, more efficient equipment, how come they have more assets turnover? Because we know assets turnover is equal to sales upon average total assets. So purchasing new assets will increase the denominator, and this will cause the average turnover, assets turnover to fall. Rather, we are seeing a higher assets turnover here. This is a wrong option. Assets turnover has increased, whereas if the company has acquired new assets, costly assets, it would fall, it will result in fall in ATO. So this does not justify in the given situation. So A is not the right option. B, company A's ROE is higher than company B in FY15. And one explanation consistent with the data is that company A has made a strategic shift to product mix with higher profit margins. It says company A has made a strategic shift to product mix with higher. What is product mix? This is of course the domain of CMAs. Let's say you sell 3 products. In total sales, 80% represents A, 5% represents B, and 50% represents C. B being the most profitable product. Company A has switched to a product mix where we sell more B. Now we sell 50% of A and a total 40% of our sales come from B, and now C is only 10%. If this has been a strategic shift where you are selling more B, which is more profitable, you should have more EBIT, not less. Why did your EBIT fall? Why did it fall? It has to be more. If it has been a good strategic shift to a higher, more profitable product in your product mix, your EBIT should have increased, but it has fallen. So this is not the right option. C, the difference between the two companies' ROE in FY15 is very small. You can see very small, 0.13 probably. So the differences between two companies' ROE in FY15 is very small, and company A's ROE remains similar to company B's, mainly due to company A's increasing its financial leverage. Everything else is being the same. Why company A has more profitability compared to last year? Because they have increased their leverage. Leverage gives you wings. Leverage gives you the ability to earn more. You will study this in your corporate finance. Leverage empowers you to make more money. Because of this higher leverage, company A has been able to generate more profits. Leverage gives you wings as long as the market is doing well. And leverage can destroy you if there is another COVID. Fixed cost can kill you. Interest can kill you if the market is in downturn. But if the market is growing, you have operating leverage and financial leverage, you will make tons of money. This is how brokerage houses make millions and millions per week. So this is the reason. Since company A has higher leverage, so they were able to generate more profit, and even the overall differences between their ROE was minimal. So the differences between the two companies' ROE is very small, yes, and company A's ROE remains similar to B, mainly due to company A increasing its financial leverage from 2 to 4, so they were able to transform this leverage into higher profitability. C is the right option. Next, what does P ratio measures? It's called P multiple. It's the, like what it is. Let's say a company that share is trading at $50 per share, its EPS was just $10. So P ratio is market price per share over earning per share. If earning per share is 10, the market price is 50. I, as an investor, I am willing to pay $5 to just get $1 earning in a particular company. Why I will be willing to pay $5 for a company that earns just $1? In other words, for every $1 earning, I am willing to spend $5. I am willing to spend 5 times of the earnings for this company. Why? Company is going to do well in the future. So the multiple that the stock market places on the company's EPS. How many times you are willing to pay more than EPS? I'm willing to pay 5 times of the EPS. This is called PE multiple. A is the right answer. A creditor most likely would consider a decrease in which of the following ratios to be a positive news? A decrease in which of these is a positive news? interest coverage decrease. If interest coverage decreases or times interest earned decreases, this is a cause of concern for me as an investor, because I might not be able to receive my interest in the future. So decrease in interest coverage is bad for me as an investor. Debt to total assets. Debt is what percentage of total assets? If this ratio falls, it means solvency is improving. This is a good sign for me. This is the good news. Return on assets. It's, first of all, it's a measure of profitability. So a debt provider or fund provider, bondholder is not as much concerned with profitability. But still, a decrease in profitability is viewed negatively. So the only good thing for me is the decrease in debt to asset ratio. Decrease in times interest earned and return on asset is bad. B is good. And that's why the good is the right answer. When developing forecasts, this is the domain of CMAs. When developing forecast, analysts should most likely do what? Develop possibilities relying exclusively on the results of financial analysis. Why exclusively on financial analysis? There is so much other information available that we can use to make a better decision. This makes this option incorrect. When developing forecasts, analysts should most likely use results of financial analysis, analysis of the other information, and judgment, not just financial analysis alone. And that makes B to be the most appropriate option. Why not C? Aim to develop extremely precise forecast using results of financial analysis. Forecast, as I said in the scenario analysis, you develop different scenarios, 1, 2, 3. Forecasts are not limited to just a single scenario or a single point estimate, but should involve range of possibilities, different scenarios. So this is incorrect as well. So B is the right option. And that ends your EOC 24.